Hello everyone, my name is Lachlan and I'm part of Waseda University and NICT, and today I'm going to be presenting on the negative effects of social triggers on user security and privacy behaviors. This is work along with Tatsuya Mori and Ayako Hasegawa. So some background about this study is that so many studies, they focus on positive aspects of social effects on user security and privacy behaviors. So for example, previous work done by my colleagues, they looked at the non-expert users and they find that they learned lessons from security and privacy stories, such as family, friends, and colleagues. And for an example from SOUPS, which our paper is based off of, they found that and showed that social triggers were the most common type of triggers that they studied, based from also proactive and forced triggers when it came to users' security and privacy behaviors. So the problem that kind of we look at is that while they focus on the positive aspects, we wanted to also look at the negative aspects, and I think it's also important to look into these, as even psychology has showed that we often remember our negative experiences and that they often outweigh our positive ones. So from the previous example, it might be possible that the non-expert users, they're learning from stories, and so some of those stories may also encourage those users to actually engage in risky or insecure behavior. So we think that not enough systematic research has been done to look at these negative aspects as opposed to these positive aspects. So what we do is we take Savik-Das's study and we kind of flip it on its head and we start to look at the negative aspects and what actually triggers users to act in a risky way for security and privacy behaviors. So we look at these four research questions, which I will briefly go over some of the main findings of each. So the first one, we look at how frequent social triggers are for risky user behavior. We look at who actually triggers users to engage in risky behaviors. We look at the factors of social triggers for risky user behaviors. And then we also look at how often and why these users share their risky behaviors with others. So our method, we do an online survey about risky user behavior, and we look at 6 potentially risky behaviors. So we don't actually think that these are necessarily bad, but they introduce more risk. So the first one we look at is connecting to public Wi-Fi and then engaging in sensitive data exchanges. So this could be transmitting credit card or password details through this connection. Secondly, we look at password reuse, which has been brought up earlier yesterday a lot. We also look at illegal downloading. So this is downloading illegal software or unofficial software for applications and media. We also look at delaying updates, so potentially critical updates being delayed. We look at sensitive posts, so actually sharing sensitive posts to strangers on social media, and then as well as account sharing, which is also brought up recently. So from these 6 risky behaviors, we ask the participants if they actually engaged in these behaviors in the past 6 months. And then following that up, we ask them about what they believe triggered their behavior. So we ask some social triggers, which were the observation of others or advice from others. We look at organizational triggers, so our requests from their organization, which hopefully does not happen as often. And then we look at voluntary triggers. So they did not experience either, and it was kind of their own volition. We also ask the reason they did or did not engage in those risky behaviors. We ask whether they shared these risky behaviors with others. And then we also asked participants about their expectations of others' risky behaviors. So for each risky behavior, we asked what percentage of the public they thought actually engaged in that behavior. Finally, we ask about the security attitudes. So for this, we use the SA6 attitude scale, and then we ask some demographics. So additionally to this, we have some instructions that we asked participants about. So this was to reduce their social desirability bias. We asked and told, I guess we told participants that we did not actually consider engaging in these risky behaviors to be bad or uncommon, and we asked that they respond honestly. For recruitment, we used Prolific to obtain a representative sample of the US, and we had a total of 417 valid responses after our attention checks, data validation, and also we cut out people who answered no to answering truthfully as well. In addition, we did host this survey on Qualtrics and just did the recruiting through Prolific. So looking at our first research question, I'll share some of the main results. So we found that, so for the frequency of the behavioral triggers for each behavior, we see that some behaviors were a lot more common among participants than others. And overall, we see about 30% of participants had social behavioral triggers, while the rest were some organizational and mostly voluntary. But overall, it was a non-negligible percent of participants had experienced these social triggers for each behavior. So next, we look at whom the users were actually triggered by and to engage in these risky behaviors. So from here, you can see that most of the participants were triggered by friends, families, and strangers, with vast majority being mainly friends and family, with almost every behavior having over 50% of participants being triggered by friends or family for those behaviors. And we also see that, not shown in this graph specifically, but younger participants were more likely to be triggered by online strangers. So for the third research question, what factors of social triggers for risky user behavior? So for some of the factors of socially triggered risky behaviors, we looked at some of the statistical analysis. So we found that individual demographics, so the age, gender, and the SA6 scores, were significantly correlated with the likelihood of the risky behavior itself, although for the social trigger, they were less correlated. Additionally, we also found that the risky behavior was significantly correlated with the likelihood of social triggers. So account sharing and illegal downloading, for example, were often caused by social triggers. We also looking at the expectations of others' risky behaviors, we found that for the behavior groups, they expected a higher percentage than the no behavior group. So if a participant didn't say that they engaged in that risky behavior, they thought that the public expected less of the public to engage in that risky behavior as well. We also saw that the social trigger group, so those who were socially triggered, they had overall a higher median than the voluntary group, so the group that voluntarily participated in that risky behavior. For the last research question, so how often and why do users share their risky behavior with others? We see that the frequency of sharing, on average, about 37.8% of risky behaviors were shared with others, and that primarily these were shared with family and friends. Interestingly, online discussion were some of the lowest, considering that a large amount of participants were actually triggered by online strangers. This might be just from posts that have been sitting on the internet for a while. Additionally, we look at some of the reasons and factors for sharing, so more statistical analysis. So we found that participants predominantly shared their risky behavior to others because they found that that risky behavior had perceived benefits, so such as convenience. We also found a significant correlation between users' sharing practices and the type of risky behaviors. So account sharing, illegal downloading were more likely to be shared, followed by sensitive posts. And then we also found that if a participant engaged in a risky behavior to social triggers, they were more likely to share it with others. So we call this like a negative social chains. And so it's a chain of if a participant was told to do something and they found it convenient, they're gonna more likely share that with others down the line. And so from these findings, we have a couple of recommendations. The first one is interventions on online platforms. So we did find that participants were often triggered by these online strangers or influencers. And so we recommend that to cut being recommended to do possibly risky behavior, that online platforms should strengthen their guidelines and add warnings for such posts that this behavior might actually be risky. We also recommend the removal of the expectation that most of the public engages in risky behavior. So we found that participants engaging in a risky behavior by specifically social triggers more so than voluntary, had a high expectation that others are engaging in that risky behavior. And we believe that by presenting the percentage of security experts or experts in general would also, who did not engage in that behavior, would lower their expectation as well. And then finally, our last recommendation was for security education with an emphasis on risky behaviors. So we see that certain risky behaviors are often socially triggered, and that the participants like to share them in favor of their benefits, so convenience, as mentioned before, that we think that it's not only to introduce recommended behaviors when conducting education, but also convey the risks in impressive ways, so using graphics or videos or actually showing the results of those said risks. So in summary, a non-negligible percentage of participants, 20 to 50% of participants experienced social triggers, and they observed others engaging in risky behaviors or were advised to do so. Risky user behaviors are primarily triggered by friends, family, and online strangers. And certain behaviors, such as account sharing and illegal downloading, are often caused by social triggers, and risky behaviors caused by social triggers are more likely to be shared with others, so those negative social chains. And with that, I will conclude my talk and open any questions that anyone might have.